Hey everyone, welcome back to another Tic Tac Taiko. I've got a topic I want to cover, but it's so big it's going to take me 2 videos to do it. I've made a lot of videos on teaching Taiko workshops, especially at places like conferences. I've talked about what people say they want and don't want based on survey data, based on my experiences, but this time I'm going to take a different direction. Instead of talking about the teaching, I want to talk about how people prepare for the workshop itself. So in other words, this could be called Taiko Conference Workshop Marketing 101 or something like that. I want to talk about how to best write proposals for committees to review to get your proposal accepted so that you can teach the workshops, and then how you draw people in to attend your workshops. I know that's a lot. That's why the title is a mouthful. This first part will focus on the proposal process. The second part will focus on getting people to sign up. These are 2 different processes requiring 2 different sets of skills, and so they both deserve their own videos. So if you've ever wondered how to submit a proposal and you're not really sure what to do and the best practices, or if you've submitted proposals in the past but you find that they get rejected or turned down more often than you would like, or if they get accepted but then they get canceled due to low enrollment, or if they get accepted and they actually happen, but you still wind up with not a lot of people, then this mini-series is for you. I wanted to start with my credentials, as it were, so that people know that I know what I'm talking about. I think it's important for a topic like this. I've taught a lot of workshops at North American Taiko conferences, Scottish Taiko Festival, the World Taiko Gathering, and all of these required proposals. There are conferences and events that don't require proposals, but we'll talk about that in a minute. It's also worth mentioning that I've submitted proposals that didn't get accepted. There were definitely conferences I wanted to teach at, but I wasn't able to, and I went as either a participant or an observer instead. And I've been on the other side of things, having served on a couple of different North American Taiko Conference workshop selection committees. In other words, the people that review the proposals and give our recommendations. And as many as you know, I've done a lot of survey work, so I've seen a lot of feedback from people saying, we like this, we don't like this, more of this, less of this, etc. Now, there are others out there who are very knowledgeable about this topic, but there's not a lot of them. Most people don't have access to them, and nobody is making a video about this topic but me. And one last thing before I get into the fun parts, if you've come this far, you might as well go ahead and click that like button, give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, why not do that now? Now, to maximize your success at submitting a proposal to a committee, you need to ask yourself 3 very important questions every time you submit that proposal. What are the instructions? Who are you? And why your workshop? We're going to get into all 3. There are several ways a person can wind up teaching at a conference, but I'm going to talk about the main 4. The first is a public call for proposal, or CFP. Sometimes you hear this referred to as an RFP, request for proposal, but CFP works just fine. The organization in charge essentially opens its doors and says, hello, Taiko community. We now invite you to send in your proposals. Just go to this website, fill out this form, do it by this deadline, and then we'll make our decision. This is the most common process. Almost everybody that's taught conferences is used to this. It does have the most amount of competition because it's open to everyone who's involved in Taiko. A similar method still involves proposals, but it's a private CFP, where people who represent the organization are reaching out to others and saying, hey, we're interested in you teaching. Do you want to send a proposal? It's not guaranteed because you still have to do a proposal, but the competition is a lot smaller and the chances are a lot higher. Similar to that is the private request, where again, someone from the organization reaches out and says, hey, we'd like you to teach a workshop. Are you interested? Yeah? Cool. That's basically it. Now, of course, there's more details to be sorted out, but that's almost as guaranteed as you can get. But there actually is one guaranteed method to be able to teach workshops, 100% guaranteed, and that is to run your own event. Now, if it's too big, you're not going to have the bandwidth to do it. You're going to have to figure out other things and put fires out. But if it's small enough, you absolutely can just say, hey, I'm going to teach workshops along with other people. And there's nothing wrong with that. For the rest of this video, I'm going to address the first two methods, which both require you to write a proposal. There are people who do get direct invites, but that's not going to be the norm. The norm, the overwhelming norm, is having to write a proposal to get your workshop accepted. There are several places or steps in the proposal approval process that a proposal can be rejected or simply not accepted. I'm not going to list all of them, but I am going to talk about the three most common. The first way is when a proposal's description is kind of vague, not well written, it leaves more questions than answers. Or the biography, is a little sketchy, like suspicious sketchy, or it's clearly overinflated. It doesn't leave people with a good feeling. These proposals are going to be rejected right off the bat. Other proposals are fine, nothing suspicious, written well, great, but they lose out to other proposals that are offering more or different or better, or maybe the conference goals go in a different direction than what the proposal offers. So it's nothing wrong with the proposal, it's about the others that are submitted. And then you have the reason why it seems most people are disqualified, if they're disqualified at all. And that's not following the directions. Every proposal will have 4 minimum requests. Give us your name, give us the title of the workshop, give us the description of the workshop, send it in before the deadline. That's it. Those 4 things. If that's all they ask for, great. But sometimes they want more, or sometimes they want different formats. And you have to pay attention because you have to do what they're asking. For example, you may have a conference that says you can submit up to 5 different proposals, but each proposal has to be submitted separately, and each proposal has to have a separate biography attached to it. Now, this might be a pain, but if that's what they're asking, that's what you have to do. Or you might hear that in the description, you have only 400 characters, including spaces, no more. Again, maybe a hassle, but that's what they're asking. Now, the amount of people who either choose not to follow the directions or didn't bother to look them up is surprisingly high. And again, this gets you disqualified. And I gotta tell you, as someone on the committee who's worked with other people on committees, no one wants to disqualify a proposal just because you didn't cross the T's and dot the I's. I've seen great proposals come through that had to be disqualified because they didn't follow the directions. Now you might be asking, well, why can't you let some of the smaller things just slide? It's not a big deal. Or why not reach out to the people that didn't do everything quite right and give them a chance to resubmit? There's actually a few good reasons why that doesn't happen. There's just not the staff, bandwidth, and or time to have somebody look at hundreds and hundreds and potentially hundreds of proposals that are coming in. Also, the committee meets after the deadline. That's when the review happens. And it's too late to go, oh, hey, we found 4 or 5 different proposals that didn't quite do what we asked. Let's halt the process, go back, ask those people to resubmit, and we'll just wait until we get back from them. Never gonna happen. And there's a really important reason why things should never slide, and that's fairness. I want you to imagine that you and your friends submit proposals, you jump through all the hoops, you do everything that was asked, and all of you get rejected. But you find out that I submitted proposals, I didn't do everything that was asked, and I made it through. It could be for whatever reason. Maybe they really wanted me at the conference because I'm high visibility, I bring in people. Maybe I know someone on the committee and it's like, yeah, cool, Adam's cool, we know him. Doesn't matter the reason. How are you gonna feel about that? Some of you may feel like it's not a big deal, whatever, shake it off. But I'm betting a lot of you would be pissed. Now, this is not a hypothetical scenario. This has actually happened, and unfortunately, it's happened more than once. And I was lucky, if you will, to have witnessed it, to see the effect it's had. People that do things the right way find out that people did things the wrong way and still made it in, and it pisses them off. Even if the people that did things the right way got accepted, if the proposals made it through, they're still upset. Why did I have to go through all that? Why does this person get a free pass? So what you wind up with are people that are pissed off, and because they talk and the word spreads, it hurts the morale of the Taiko community. You've got the Taiko conference, which now is viewed a little less favorably because of this scandal. Then you have the people in charge who are viewed with suspicion, like, why are you doing this? And the person that got special consideration, they're not viewed favorably either. Like, who are you? Why did you get this free pass? What's going on? There is no positive. Nobody wins in this scenario. And I'm not saying this is still happening. I'm simply saying when it happened, it didn't go well for anyone involved. So the best thing that everyone can do is know what the directions are and follow them, which brings us back to the original question. What are the instructions? Now, when I was on the workshop committee for those couple of NATCs, the way it worked was this. We took all the people that submitted proposals and split them up evenly and distributed them to each one of us. We were then tasked to find out, who is this person? What can we find out? What can we say about them? On top of also reviewing the description itself. But we had to first vet each of these individuals. Now, sometimes it was easy. Like, I remember once I had to vet Kenny Endo. Done. Easiest vet I had to do. But other times you get a person you don't know. And it doesn't mean that they're not known, but you may not know them. So you have to do research so that you can talk about them to everybody else. So the question isn't really, who are you? The question is, if you are assigned to someone on a workshop committee who does not know who you are, what will they find out about you? And that's all summed up in the question, who are you? Now, I'm going to overcomplicate the answer because that's what I do. And I've created what I call a prestige tier list. This has 4 different categories, which helps understand where people might be in terms of visibility. The 4 tiers are special, high, middle, and low. The special tier are people that are very, very well known. Odds are, if you do have a committee looking people up, everybody on that committee will know a person in this tier. These people are not necessarily guaranteed to get every workshop, but pretty guaranteed to get at least one or a few of their requests. In the high tier, you have people who aren't as known as those in the special tier, but generally people have heard of them. Maybe not everyone on the committee, but oh, okay, yeah, I remember hearing about that person. Or, oh, that picture, I just didn't know who their name was. So they have visibility, they have a presence. They're just not as well known. And odds are they can get workshops as long as everything falls into place. The middle tier is a bit of a mixed bag. You have people that aren't well known, but aren't well known by a lot of people. And then you have people that are well known, but only by a few, and kind of everything in between. These people are harder to find out information about, but not impossible. It just really depends what they have available, how long they've been playing, where they are, who knows them, etc. And then you have the low tier. These are people who it's really hard to find out a lot of information about, and not a lot of people just know about them from their interactions with the Taiko community. The people on the low tier are going to have the most trouble getting vetted and approved because it's hard to find out about them. Now, in addition to the 4 tiers, I've got 6 different categories or types of people that fall into those tiers to help you understand how people are viewed within the tiers. The people in the special tier have impact. These are the movers, the shakers, the founders, the makers. These are the people that have made Taiko possible for you and me. In the high tier, you have who I call influencers. Not social media influencers, but let's say Taiko influencers. They have an influence. They don't have as much impact as those on the special tier, but they have a presence. They affect the Taiko community by what they say and what they do. They may have followings. They may be popular. They may be doing something that's seen as the newest fad or have created the newest fad, but they definitely have an influence on what happens within the community. In the middle tier, like I said, it's a mixed bag. You have probably the most people in this tier. And because there are so many, it's impossible to list them all. But there are 2 that I think perhaps are the most common that are worth mentioning. One category are people with longevity. They have been playing Taiko for a long time, maybe 20, 25, 30 or more years, but they're just not known. Maybe because they were isolated, maybe on purpose, maybe not, and now they're starting to branch out and be known in the community. Or maybe they used to be known, but they took a break, they fell out of public eye for whatever reason, and the community just kind of moved on. These people are going to struggle with getting known, getting their reputation back. It's possible, it just takes time. And the other category is almost exactly the opposite. It's people who haven't been playing for a long time, but they are well known in a small area or community. Maybe they joined a group with high visibility, or they created a group that has high visibility, or they work with several groups and they're very impactful, influential, whatever, in a small community. And the people in the low tier are pretty much everybody else. They're not well known. They haven't really done much outside of the group or community they're in. They haven't been playing for a long time, etc. Now, this last category is special because it actually covers several tier lists. It doesn't fit into any one, and that is international guests. It's important here to remind people that international does not just mean only Japan. It's anybody from one country traveling to another country to teach a workshop. Now, people who are current or former members of, say, Kodo or Amano-jaku or Shidara, etc., they're going to be on the special tier. They've got high visibility and very popular groups. They're almost guaranteed a workshop. If you have someone from another country who's an expert in a style or have mastered something like Hachijo or Miyake, Yataibayashi, whatever, those people may be on the high tier. They may not be as well known, but because of their talents and abilities, they're easy to find out about. And often there are people who are representing them, who are promoting them to help make that happen. For the middle tier, you have people who are maybe really good at one thing. They haven't necessarily mastered a style, but they've shown high proficiency in a skill. This could be, for example, someone who wins Odaiko competitions. So they're really good at winning Odaiko competitions, and they can speak to Odaiko competitions, but it doesn't necessarily mean they've mastered Odaiko, if that makes sense. They're just bringing a skill set that might be really, really valuable to learn. And so they're not as well known, and it can be hard to find out who they are, but you can still generally find some evidence that they can do what they say they can do. And it's a safe bet to say you're probably never going to find an international guest on the low tier, because if they're even submitting a proposal, they've got to have some sort of presence. They have to have something that lets you know that they're legit, because there's usually a lot of costs involved, often on their side. And why would they go through all the trouble if no one knew who they were? Now, realize this is a very unofficial tier list. There's no committee that's whipping out the chart that Adam created and going, oh, according to Adam, these people are here. No one does that. I don't do it. This is just what's in my head and how I like to organize things, which means there's no hard boundaries. There's no hard borders. Someone could easily fit in between the high and middle tier and a little bit, I'm not sure, but it gives me an idea of where they might be in relation to other people. Also, people move from tier to tier. No one starts at the special tier. We all start on the low tier, and over our Taiko careers, we move up. Sometimes we move down and sometimes back up again. It's organic. Now, you might be struggling to be seen, to be visible, to be known, to have people vet you. There are lots of ways that you can increase your prestige. I'm going to mention two. And while no one's going to do either one of these simply to have more workshops approved, by doing these, it's going to be easier to have more workshops approved. One is word of mouth, and the other is media. Word of mouth is having people speak on your behalf, either because you asked them to, or they did it on their own accord. And media can be anything from video clips of you doing the thing you say you can do, to actually having a social media presence. Unfortunately, both of these options take a lot of time and a lot of work. Word of mouth can be incredibly powerful. I remember applying to the Scottish Taiko Festival, I think in 2023. I didn't know anybody in the region. I didn't know anybody organizing the event. I'd never been to Scotland. I just thought this was a really cool opportunity, so I applied. And it wasn't until after I was literally in Scotland, having been approved, I talked to the host, and he told me there was another workshop leader, someone I had known for decades, and the host had asked them, hey, what do you know about this guy? And that workshop leader said, oh yeah, Adam is legit. I did not know about this until after it had happened, and I owe that person a debt of gratitude. It's not to say that without the word of mouth, I wouldn't have made it. I may very well had, but saying that I was legit, getting this positive word of mouth, definitely helped greenlight my approval. If you want to be spoken well of, you need to do things where people will speak well of you. And the best and fastest way to do that is to volunteer. Not just at conferences, just volunteer. Events, festivals, gatherings, wherever you can be seen benefiting the community. It could be in person, it could be online. It can be with a skill that you are really good at, or it can be just as a warm body. Hey, tell me what you want me to do. Whatever it is, volunteering is a really good way for people to find out who you are. Now, it's usually better in person because this way people get to see your true character. They get to see how you handle stress. They get to see how you treat people and if you go above and beyond. And you never know. The person that you're helping moving drums with might wind up to be the future conference coordinator someday. But remember, word of mouth is tricky because you don't have direct control over it. It's other people talking for you. As for media is one of those things that can be really easy for some people and really difficult for others, depending on a lot of factors. Just having videos of yourself doing the thing you say you can teach well is really important. It's not good enough just to have pictures of yourself on Instagram or Facebook because pictures don't tell the whole story. Pictures can be edited to look really cool. Video is showing, not telling. But you might also be part of a group that has a website. Maybe you have videos on there. Maybe there's a biography on there. Maybe you can put videos on an unlisted page and send that to the committee. And there are other people who are vocationalists or vocationalists to be who will be working on social media presence, but it's not for everyone. Now, of course, you don't have to do either one of these things. You can just apply for workshops, hope you get them, and over the course of time, get more and more known. But that's a really difficult path. One last thing before we move away from this question. I've talked about visibility a lot. Prestige is the positive form of visibility. Notoriety might be the negative form of visibility. Word of mouth is great when it's positive and it sucks when it's negative. But as humans, we tend to be prone to talking about the things that this person did and that person did. And did you hear what happened? It's unfortunate, but that's who we are. If you are someone who is difficult to work with, if you have a lot of demands, if you're rude to volunteers, if you badmouth the organization that you're applying for, this is not going to serve you well. And unfortunately, all four of those things and more were brought up in more than one committee that I was on. And while none of these by themselves was enough to disqualify a proposal, they all made it way more difficult to have them accepted. And when you're competing with hundreds and hundreds of other proposals, this is the kind of stuff you really don't want on your plate. So while yes, it's important to have prestige and visibility, you also want to make sure that it's the right kind of visibility. You also want to make sure that you are being a good member to the community because the community ultimately decides whether or not you get to teach workshops. And with all of that, we wrap up question number 2. Who are you? Our third and final question boils down to 2 factors: resources and competition. Every single conference has a limited amount of resources. For example, there are only so many spaces that workshops can be held in concurrently. There are only so many hours in a day that instruction can happen. And there are only so many funds that can be given to workshop instructors. I mean, even if a billionaire came out and said, I'm going to fund the next Taiko conference and it's going to be marvelous, that's great, but people still have lives to get back to. You're always going to have a limited amount of resources to deal with. And because there's a limited amount of resources, everybody applying for workshops is competing against each other. And because there's so much competition, I think it's useful to identify the different types. And there's only 2. There's direct and there's general. Direct competition happens by people submitting workshops that are very, very similar to each other, if not actually the same topic. So for example, let's say you want to teach basic naname technique. Cool, except there are 7 other people who have also submitted basic naname technique workshops. So now all 8 of you are competing for a limited amount of spots because there's no way any conference is going to have 8 different basic naname technique workshops. Something else that happens is the people in charge, like the conference coordinator, looking at previous workshops and previous conferences and deciding that they're going to do something different or they have an agenda. Nothing wrong about that. I don't want to make it sound negative, but they might say something like this. We've had too much focus on naname. I think I only want a few naname workshops, any naname workshops, just a few. So you have your basic naname technique workshop that you're proposing. Now you're competing with intermediate naname technique, advanced naname technique, soloing on naname, choreography on naname, and maybe even songs that are on naname. All of the naname workshops are now competing for just a few spots. This is direct competition, and you won't know it's happening, but it is always happening. And it's really good practice to assume that others are teaching the exact same workshop so that you start to think, how do you distinguish yourself? How, what, where, what's your approach, what's your style, what are you offering that others don't? Because I guarantee you, other people are doing that. And if you don't, you are automatically making it harder and harder for yourself to be accepted. The other kind of competition is general. Like I said earlier, everybody submitting a proposal is competing against everybody else submitting a proposal. Your friends, your colleagues, your mentors, your students, your teachers, you're all competing against each other. This is the nature of the game and there's no way around it. So what I have found useful is to think about how valuable a workshop might be. And value is very subjective, and I'm not going to dive deep into what the meaning is, but you are essentially trying to ask the proposal committee to take a risk on paying you to teach a workshop so that other people will pay them to take your workshop. And one way to understand the value of a workshop is to think about how rare it might be or not. So hey, we've got another tier list. I know you love them, right? In this case, I'm using a gaming loot tier list, which goes uncommon, common, rare, epic, and legendary. If you don't play games, if you don't know what this is, don't worry about it. But for those who do, you're welcome. As you move up on the tier list, you get workshops that are less and less common, that are more and more rare, hence it being a rarity tier list. One example of a common workshop would be basic beta technique. Why is this common? In my community, North America, I don't know that there's a group that doesn't play beta. We all play beta. Now, I might be wrong, but I haven't heard of a group here that doesn't play beta. So everybody in North America who plays Taiko plays beta. Some form, some style, some ability. That means that every group is teaching its members beta, which means every group has some teacher that already teaches beta. It could be somebody in-house or someone that comes like an outside person to teach several groups. It doesn't matter. Everybody's receiving beta instruction, which means beta instruction itself is common. It's very common. So that's why this workshop would fall in the common tier. It doesn't mean it wouldn't be a good workshop. It's just, it's very easy to find beta instructors. As we move up a level, an example of an uncommon workshop would be naname, like a basic naname technique. That's the slant style of drumming. In North America, naname is very common, but not as common as beta. Some groups don't play it. So same things apply, but less common, right? People are playing it, which means they have an instructor, but not everybody plays it and not everybody is able to teach it. Some people are looking for naname instructors. They've had some instruction. So naname is still easy to find, but it's not as common, which makes it uncommon. And then we move up to the rare level, which would be, let's say, odaiko. Odaiko being the large drum that people usually play facing with their back to the audience. Odaiko is a really fun type of taiko. It's very popular. People love to see it. People love to play it. But not a lot of groups have odaiko. Odaiko is huge. It takes up a lot of space that some people don't have. Also, it's expensive. The bigger the drum, the more money it costs. So sometimes people are playing odaiko by taking their regular chudaiko, the normal size drum, putting it on a tall stand and playing it like odaiko, but it's not quite the same. So it is more rare than beta and naname. And because it's more rare, because not all groups have it, it's less likely people are playing it. It's less likely you have people teaching it. And so that's why it's here on the rare tier. And then we move up to the epic tier with something like a basic Katsugi Okedo workshop. Katsugi Okedo is the slung Okedo that you wear on the shoulder and play while standing. Now, if you are someone relatively new to Taiko and you leave them in a room alone with beta, naname, or odaiko, generally they can figure something out. How to generate power, what feels good, what doesn't, kind of working towards a higher and higher goal. But Katsugi Okedo can be a mystery for years to people. It's hard to figure out, how do I do this? What's going on here? Skills don't necessarily translate. Not a lot of groups in North America play Katsugi Okedo. A good number, but definitely not the norm. And some people who do play Katsugi Okedo are aching for instruction because they don't have it. They have maybe one workshop, but it's not common. Because less people play it, There are less instructors of a higher caliber, and so that's why a workshop like this would be in the epic tier. And finally, we have the legendary tier. What is legendary? A legendary workshop would be something on a skill or talent that is extremely hard to find someone who is qualified to teach. For example, the shishimai, the lion dance. Not only is it hard to do, but to find someone qualified to teach, it's really difficult. There are very few people that I know and very few workshops that have ever been offered on this. It takes a lot of work to just be good at, let alone be able to teach at. You have to have some serious credentials to be even considered as a teacher of a skill in the legendary tier. So we've got our 5 tiers, we've got our 5 examples, but remember, this is just the rarity tier list. It's not talking about value. And where we get value from this is where things can get a little contentious, a little heated. In some ways, the further away you get from the center, the less valuable a workshop might be. And I'm using these words carefully. A workshop in the middle, on the rare tier, is usually a perfect blend of desirability, availability, and popularity. Now, popularity and desirability are kind of the same, but whatever, you get the idea. It's right in the middle of where things need to be to have the most people want to sign up for it. And that's where we get value. It doesn't mean the workshop will or won't be great. It says nothing about the quality of the workshop. It's about the perception of the value of that workshop from the committee. Let's move from that middle all the way to the 2 extremes, where we have our shishimai at legendary and our basic beta technique at common. If you look at the history of North American Taiko Conference, all the conferences, all the workshops, and there's been a lot, I've done a whole video on that, you'll see that there are not a lot of basic beta technique workshops taught. Again, it's common, everyone plays it, everyone learns it, but still there are people who want to get better at beta. And why wouldn't they? They're using beta, they want to get better at beta. So just because everyone's doing it doesn't mean no one wants to learn it. It's just you have to face the reality. It's a very common thing. Whereas the shishimai technique on top, a lot of people don't want to learn it. I mean, if I learned shishimai when I was in San Jose Taiko, I would never have been able to use it. We didn't do anything with it. But it's a very cool skill. And there are people who will want to learn it because it's cool. It's just not a lot of them. So this is a niche type of workshop. And there are people who do want to take it. But you take a risk by going further and further away from the middle. You're offering something that everyone has access to, or you're offering something that maybe most people don't want to take. It's all about risk. If you're wondering why I said this is contentious and heated and people will argue, people like to argue. You might say, oh no, you know what, Odaiko is way more rare than Katsugi Keto and Shishimai is more than Beta. People will have their own opinions. This is my list, my opinions, my examples. It's neither right nor wrong. It's simply how I like to view different workshops. So what's the purpose of a tier list like this? Again, it's not official. Nobody is unrolling the tier list scroll in a committee. And it's not like you have to put all the workshops that you ever think about into this list and try to reorder them. If you are offering workshops, it's a really good idea to consider how rare they are, which then lets you start thinking about how valuable they might be. You don't have to make this list. You can do it in your head, but this is a good way to have a template. Let's say you have a conference that tells you can only submit one workshop or a limited amount of workshops, but you have more workshops that you can offer. How do you decide what to submit? That's where you use this list. You might look at that tier list and think, all right, I'm going to pick a safe workshop to teach, one that's very likely to be accepted because I want to teach. But I'm also going to submit a workshop that's not likely to get accepted, but I really love teaching it. And there's a chance they might take both, right? You're hedging your bets. You're spreading things out. It's a safe way to sort of evaluate what it is you're teaching, but also have an idea of where other people might be as well. Like I said, we are all competing against each other for limited resources. So it's really important to think about what are you offering with your workshop proposal? What value are you offering the committee? In other words, why your workshops? Look, at the end of the day, these are just my opinions, my advice based on my experiences. I'm making this video because I want people to have an advantage, to have a better chance of having their proposals accepted. And I truly believe anybody who watches this mini-series will have an advantage over people who don't. Now, it's true, if everybody watched this video, we would all have the same advantage, but the truth is, not everyone who submits a proposal is going to watch this video or the next one. So, those of you who do, like you, now have an advantage over those who don't. Does this guarantee a workshop? No, I'm not guaranteed a workshop, and I know all the tricks. And you might be thinking, well, Adam, aren't you essentially creating more competition for yourself? Yeah, I am. So what? I made this channel to benefit the Taiko community, and that's what these videos are going to do. And I'll be honest, I'm not giving away all my secrets. There's things that I do that I'm not going to tell you about, but this is a great step for the community to take advantage of. I would love to hear your thoughts, your suggestions, your questions, your comments on this video and on this topic, and I'm sure other people in the community would like to know as well. The next video in the series will be about what happens once you do have your proposals accepted and now you're trying to bring people in and sign up for your workshop. That's a whole different topic, and I think it's an interesting one as well. So until next time, keep on planning and be well.